Over the weekend, Square Enix released their 2022 annual report, and in that report, there was a statement that made quite a few people uneasy. But on closer inspection, the claim actually has a lot of validity to it, and it's something I have been talking about for a long time on this channel, especially as someone enthusiastic about JRPGs and Japanese games. That being said though, this is going to massively shape the future of Japanese games going forward, and in many ways, we've already seen the impact of this. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Look at this. Look at how close we are to 90K. There is nothing standing between you and the subscribe button. So if you aren't subscribed already, please go ahead and push us over the edge. Square Enix CEO Yosuke Matsuda saying in their report, quote, "Achieving major growth in the game industry is difficult now for companies that compete primarily in the Japanese market, given its graying demographics. As such, it is critical for our business that we produce hit titles that speak to the global market, which offers greater scale in terms of both customers and sales volumes. Furthermore, game development efforts are becoming more sizable and sophisticated as a result of technological advancement in devices on which they are played, such as consoles or smart devices. The investment required to develop game titles is therefore an order of magnitude greater than in the past. In other words, the Japanese market is no longer sufficient for achieving a level of earnings that enables us to recoup our development investment and generate a profit, and we therefore need to approach our development efforts based on the assumption that we have to succeed in the global market." I think a lot of people have interpreted this information the wrong way. A lot of people have read this as they are going to begin the westernization of their titles, and to a large degree, yes, this is saying that they are going to be introducing a number of elements that do appeal to a Western audience. Do you like having simultaneous global worldwide releases with an English language option available from day one? If you guys remember, this wasn't always a thing. It's very much a recent development. The fact that mainline Final Fantasy games come out in North America on the same day as they do in Japan is a very recent development that only started with Final Fantasy 15. Not to mention games like Final Fantasy 16, which is prioritizing English voice acting first, something that is extraordinarily rare for a Japanese game to do. And the reason is exactly what Yosuke Matsuda outlined here. Back in the days of the 90s and early 2000s, Japan's console market was absolutely thriving. As a result, they would do just fine prioritizing a domestic release. And then if they wanted to make even more money on top of that, they could release the game globally. But as the console gaming market in Japan began shrinking, this became less and less of an option. Conversely, HD gaming in North America and Europe has only grown over the years. And if you need a perfect example of that, look no further than Persona 5, with over 77% of P5 sales being international. With there being over 117 million PlayStation 4s, less than 10 million of them are sold in Japan. And of course, game development costs are always skyrocketing. And as those development costs continuously increase, you have to sell more and more units in order for a project to be considered successful. Selling 1 or 2 million units used to be a huge success, but now for a AAA game to only sell 1 or 2 million, it would now be viewed as a failure that only really broke even instead of making any substantial profit. So the pressure for AAA games to sell more and more continues to compound, and the only way for Japanese companies like Square, but not limited to them, to continue to make AAA HD games is to have titles that appeal where they can sell the most. Now that being said, one thing that they should note is that the reason these titles appeal in the first place is because they are Japanese games. Putting out a title that simply tries to emulate a Western title isn't going to impress anybody, and ultimately that would just be producing something that likely falls flat with both audiences. That being said, continuing to offer simultaneous worldwide releases, putting money into doing high quality English language productions like Final Fantasy 16, all while maintaining the JRPG style, character designs, and presentation. Also increasing the amount of interaction that the Japanese development team does with the Western audience. This is something that Naoki Yoshida has done really well, especially with his media tour, where overseas content creators got to ask him questions about Endwalker prior to release. We also got some interesting numbers from this report. The Final Fantasy series has officially sold over 173 million units. Also, there's always been some question on how much the original Final Fantasy VII has sold. It sold incredibly well on its initial PS1 release, but since then it's been released for every platform under the sun. Pretty sure my toaster could run Final Fantasy VII OG at this point. Final Fantasy VII OG has topped 13.9 million units, both physical and digital, though the updated numbers for Final Fantasy VII Remake still remain unknown. Shout out to patron Sutako Ichigo and the rest of the Ultima community.
My word of conflict, one goes what keeps me going. Take back what I lost to the bosses of greed and fear. Yeah.